Frico always considered himself a servant of the law, handed down by those who know how the world should be, dispensed by his own hand. His methods may be repugnant, and his unbalanced temperament may see him do reckless, insane things, but there's always been an underlying commitment to do the right thing, most of the time. About 3 days before the beginning of the events in motion, Frico was called upon in the small hours of the morning to attend to a special case. A young lady of certain social standing had disappeared from the island, and all attentions had been turned towards the man who'd been courting her for some time, a handsome trader called Kimmer. Her family claimed he was stealing her away against her will, and with the leverage they had, it wasn't too much of a reach for them to get a professional in to get them the information they required. Frico began his work as he always did, with professional courtesy and decorum. No lies, no pain. By the looks of it, the bailiffs had been heavy-handed with bringing Kimmer in, but that was only to be expected, given the circumstances. The man denied any involvement, claiming that he had no interest in the girl, that this was all over a debt he owed the family. This didn't add up with the information Frico had. Lies were punished. Hours passed, with Frico methodically battering Kimmer at the merest whisper of a lie. But nothing changed. Her family were cutthroats, scoundrels looking to seize his boats and cargo. Lies, lies, and more lies. Frico broke all the fingers on Kimmer's right hand. That night, as Frico retired for sleep, another message came. Bring Kimmer to an isolated spot away from the main settlement. Come alone. It would be cutting it fine, but Frico knew that this was his duty, and if he needed to do something, he'd do it. He trussed the broken body of the man, draped him in sacks, and dragged him out of town on a litter. By the time he got there, exhausted, it was nightfall, or as close to it as possible. There were people waiting on the isolated little beach, a small boat pulled up onto the sand. Purvis was there. So was the family that had commissioned them. And the girl. Master, might I ask, what's going on? We shouldn't be outside. Frico glanced at the twitching form stowed underneath the sacks. I don't think he's been in any fit state to travel any further. Purvis blinked slowly. The blink he reserved for dealing with Frico's naive stance on such matters. He gestured to the boat. Put him in. But now, Frico. The body was moved onto the boat. All the while, Frico did his best not to glance at the reunited family, but caught himself noticing their expressions. Sombre, yes, but hardly the trauma he'd have expected from a family that had almost lost their child. It was like they were watching driftwood spin away on the outer currents. Purvis rowed, not trusting Frico to do much other than keep Kimmer from stirring. It took them the best part of an hour to get a good distance from the shore, close enough that the inexorable draw of the circle current would do what had to be done. Stowing the oars, he nodded to Frico. Cut him, then toss him over the side. Frico blanched. This wasn't the first time this had come to pass. Indeed, if he'd admit it to anyone, he sometimes felt a little sick satisfaction in denying some of the more heinous criminal types he'd worked with on the satisfaction of a proper ceremony. It wasn't right to cheat the ferryman, to flaunt taboo like that, but with some people it had to be done. Kimmer, though, he hadn't done enough to merit this, surely. Frico cleared his throat, rubbed a hand over his face anxiously. Master, is this strictly necessary? From what I saw, the girl, she was unharmed, and Kimmer swears blind that he had nothing to do with her. Couldn't this all just be some kind of misunderstanding? Purvis's eyes narrowed. He leant forward close enough that Frico could taste the bitter flavour of smoked fish on his breath and spoke in a harsh whisper. You've seen nothing. You've done nothing. Kimmer fled this island on a boat, drunk and bitter after falling out with some other people. After it's clear that he will never return, his property will be distributed between his debtors, and anything remaining will be offered up as tribute. This is all you need to know. No, that's not right. You're lying. Why are you lying? Stop whimpering like some petulant little child, Purvis snapped, reaching out and seizing Frico by his ear. You are a confessor. You are an instrument of the law. Moreover, you are my instrument. Like any other, should you cease to be useful to me, he glanced at the water, you'll be discarded. There are plenty of people out there who would kill their mothers for a job like yours. People who don't get so caught up in the damn moment they can't see what's going on in front of their damn eyes. Tears were welling up in Frico's eyes. Something in his belly told him to run, dive into the water and... What? Swim home? Curl up and hide? Let the air from his lungs and sink to the bottom? What could he do? He had to take care of himself. And had to think about Gladys. He didn't even entertain the thought of what Purvis would do to her without him to look after her. This wasn't justice. Frico made the cut, quick and deep below Kimmer's ribs. The body heaved, spasmed, as air rushed into the chest cavity. One quick heave, and Kimmer sank beneath the water in a cloud of expanding dark brown mist. Frico could believe he saw the man still struggle as he sank into oblivion. This wasn't justice. The family were gone once the boat returned to shore. With nothing more than a quiet nod from Purvis, Frico began trudging the path back to town, his feet leaden, his head roaring with blood and anger and fear. This wasn't justice. The faces of the family reared up in his mind, those impassive, empty, cruel masks. He'd been a lie from start to finish, and he'd swallowed it like a fish on a line. He found himself entering his home without knowledge of walking the rest of the way. He'd made sure Gladys was comfortable in his swaddled bed, happily snoring, gripping her favourite pliers, then retired to his own room. Sleep came quickly, smothering him, flooding him, like water pouring through a hole, dragging him down, down, into nothingness.